Hello, and welcome to episode 166 of Prose. This week, feel safe with two beloveds, and beware who you let tromp in your garden. Rather than my usual pleas this week, I'll simply say, hey, enjoy the show, and please share it with one human you think might also enjoy it. Have them stream an episode or 12. That'd be great. Grow our Prose family. I do appreciate your attempts in that vein. But for now, let's get to the stories, shall we? This week, we have Waking Up and Exchange. Enjoy. Waking Up, an original short story by Jared I. McGee. I woke up only remembering flashes from the tail end of the night before. It had all started with 64-ounce beers with an old friend from an internship that just happened to be in town on a Saturday night. Now, I never go out on Saturday nights anymore. But this was a rare occasion. She wanted to celebrate my long-past birthday. I wanted to see a true friend in an existence that was pretty devoid of them for some time. Henrietta and I met at the scroungiest cash-only bar we could find. And it just happened to have those tanks they called beers on the menu. If I were a betting man, I would put good money on Henrietta knowing precisely what she was getting us into. After, was it really 5 years? We found ourselves 5 of those massive beverages into our quick drink together, and the sun was already on its way to greet tomorrow elsewhere. We said our goodbyes, cheersed the remainder of that 5th gallon of hops, and promptly realized we were having far too much fun to part ways just yet. We rode the ferry to watch the sun truly abandon us in flames. We wandered the riverside watching tourists marvel at urban expanse. We found ourselves at some sailor-themed ritzy place with $30 cocktails and couldn't resist. Within 15 minutes, we were surrounded by new friends, had to don sailor hats ourselves, and had convinced everyone that, no, it really was both of our birthdays. Songs were sung, hugs were given. We put down another 5 cocktails each. In a crescendo of sparklers, free brownies, and a shot or 3 of Jose Cuervo each, Henrietta and I finished our evening. We stumbled our way each of our respective ways home. Her to the bus that would terminate at her hotel, me to my train to my apartment. Before parting, we hugged, promised it wouldn't be another 5 years, and then we parted ways. I could hear Henrietta already making a friend as she boarded her bus, her gregariousness being palpably infectious everywhere she went. Man, I missed my close friends. Not that I was alone. Far from it. I had a dog that was, as I told everyone, my son and soulmate. I had a job that, if I'm being honest, ate most of my spare thoughts and energy. Hell, it ate all my thoughts and energy on most days. I had a family that, though far away, kept in regular contact with me, constantly using 21st century tools to feel like we didn't see one another a collective 20 days a year. Most helpful were my 2 girlfriends. Yes, you heard that right. Yes, I know it sounds odd to some ears. Well, it used to my ears too, before I was somewhat radicalized by my environment and a dumpster fire economy / socio-political hellscape. The big city had opened my eyes to a lot of unavoidable, harsh realities. And with that, I began to see that traditional ways weren't the only ways of going about living a kind, connected, valued, and valuable life. So my train ride home was a smattering of other drunks and druggies being afraid of me, and me being afraid of them in turns. We were all a little worse for wear at 3 a.m. on a, well, now Sunday. We all just wanted to be anywhere but with one another under the ground, miles below the surface of the city. Thankfully, Henrietta had kindly chosen a straight shot from my apartment, so my stalemate with my fellow deviants only lasted about half an hour. A blessing, indeed. As always, I was excited to see my adopted Irish wolfhound Finn. He was way larger than the 17 pounds I told the property management he was, but my building manager was cool with Finn, and I tipped him to remain cool with Finn. Normally, I would have to get him out and stumble bum him through the park and the warren of avenues around my place to ensure he got exercise and a chance to relieve himself. But the girls had taken care of him for me. They had actually texted me pictures of him gallivanting in the park while I was on my drinking marathon with Henrietta, which is probably a large part of how I was able to let loose and actually have a good time with a friend. Having partners was amazing for me, but it was maybe most amazing for me because it was so very wonderful for the enrichment of Finn's life and the betterment of his quality of life. Anyway, Finn gave me requisite snuggles, kisses, hand nips, and body bumps. He's a big boy, so the lattermost of those is always a real feat to stand up through. He didn't go too nuts, though, because he'd already been on numerous epic adventures for the evening, and it was well past his preferred 10 p.m. bedtime. Finn went immediately back to his bed and was snoring before I'd fully stopped fumbling in my pockets. We had both been quiet amid our greetings, as I knew the girls would be asleep. Elena was in the far bedroom. This was her solo night in the Queen. Maya was in the California King in the master bedroom. This was a night she was in the shared space. I washed up and brushed up as quickly and quietly as I possibly could, even going so far as to take my clothes off and change into my comfies in the living area. Finn was down for the count, but I gave him another quick head pat and I snuck into the master bedroom, slowly easing my way into the bed with Maya. $10 drinks. Whew. 10 drinks do a number on the memory. 10 drinks when 5 are the size of your head and the other 5 have 4 shots of liquor apiece. Woof! Then you add in some shots. Oh my. My smoothness couldn't have been very smooth. I knew this in the light of the next day when I was logical, but at the same time I settled in for a nice night of sleep, not even cuddling up to Maya, hoping I could save her a rude wake-up call in the wee hours before the sun came back around. As I lay on my back, the room was spinning, but it was a very pleasant merry-go-round. That's where my memory gets patchy, and man, oh man, do I curse those blank spaces. Maya was in a state. I must have woken her up. In the pitch of the room, she and Elena both hate any slice or sliver of light when trying to sleep, so we've seen to no light. But my sodden brain, it didn't even register her movement until I felt that wet, warm embrace of lips below my waistline. Once my thoughts actually registered what was happening and my body responded, the world began to leap back and forth from blackness to wakeful exhilaration. I never kiss and tell, so I don't talk to, anyone about my experiences beyond closed doors with my partners. But what flashes remain? Again, there is a reason why I have so scorned my on and off memory from that particular evening. Suffice it to say, I was pleased. I would like to think that Maya had been too, as she was drenched in sweat, zonked, and ready to get back to sleep when I had a moment of coming to. This time, I flipped her to face me again, getting her to lay her head on my chest so we could fall asleep cuddling and holding one another. It must have only been 4 or 5 hours later when I woke with the little bit of light streaming in from an out-of-place curtain, pushed to the side by something Maya had thrown amid our tryst earlier that morning. I went to go close the window so we might get a few more hours of golden Sunday sleep, and I realized that both of my arms were pinned, as I did an awkward mini sit-up. Elena had come in from her solo night in our queen-size bed and had cuddled up to my left side. Both women had their heads on my chest and were holding me tightly. Elena's left leg over me and Maya's right leg over me, the two of them playing cute footsie over the top of me in their sleep. This is where most people cringe that aren't used to this increasingly normalized but still non-standard lifestyle. This is where they expect to hear of Epicurean delights and hedonistic moments of sexual deviancy. That's not what this was. Well, that's not what this was in this moment of my waking up that was so special to me. The two women holding me fast against the troubles that the world outside would bring, because it is the way of that world. It is the inevitability. They were something far more. Through a broken and tumultuous road full of more missteps and pain than I could reminisce upon or even recall, both inflicted and received, I had, by some miracle, ended up in a situation where I was lifted up, supported, and generally kept safe against my own self-destructive nature and, to some extent, the entropy and nihilism the universe affords us all in this life. I just couldn't bring myself to jostle those two heads to go and close the window. So I laid fully back down from that awkward mini sit-up, doing my best not to wake Maya or Elena. And I put off waking up for a little while longer, reveling in being held safe against the world. Thank you for listening to Waking Up, an original short story by me, Jared I. McGee. Please stick around for our next short story, one of how we affect one another and how we affect our environment and how we are affected in return. Stick around for exchange. Exchange, an original short story by Jared I. McGee. Have you ever felt like you become a person when you spend too much time with them? You've got to know what I'm talking about, right? Well, God knows that I have experienced it. With friendships, it's where you affect one another's speech patterns and mannerisms, your accents, your quirks. With romantic relationships, it's where you do all that but add in dislikes becoming likes, likes becoming dislikes, ideas and identities merging. All that stuff that people swear will never happen to them when they're in a relationship. With sexual relationships, it can be as simple as coming to enjoy a particular act or kink or position, or as downright cellular as your scent changing due to pheromone exchange with your partner or partners. Family? Well, everyone has experienced people related to one another who are, at least in part, partial copies of one another. Be that coming to the fore in behavior or physical looks. Going back to all things romance and or sexual, I can't help but giggle when I see relationships turn two people into each other. Fat men get their women fat. Fit women get their men fit. And so on and so forth into eternity. Style, medical issues, patterns of thinking. No matter how big or how small, something is left behind. There is an exchange. It wasn't until I was watching some cookie-cutter documentary on serial killers that I fully realized my theories and thoughts on all of this weren't batty. Locard's exchange principle. It's so damn simple. So damn straightforward. That C+ documentary, docu-series really, leaned heavily into the dramatic, but it also had a dearth of forensic science. Like good, hard, gritty forensic science. And the creators or producers or whoever didn't skimp on the experts on camera or the depths to which those experts were allowed to go with the extreme deep dives into all things forensic sciences and the principles governing the study and practice. So yeah, when I heard of Locard's exchange principle, I had my life changed. To me, it was odd how new and how old it was at the same time. The Locard in question refers to Dr. Edmond Locard, a man whose life spanned the end of the 19th century all the way to being just shy of the Summer of Love, dying in 1966. This period, to me, seems like a massive time of upheaval and transition.
chiefly from the old and the weird and, frankly, backward, to something that set the world toward modernity. Locard, kicking around Lyon, came up with the simple idea that, quote, every contact leaves a trace, unquote. No matter how small, when we touch something or someone, we leave ourselves in and with it. And they leave themselves or itself with or in us. In a small way, every touch, every contact is an exchange of self, of resonance, of the fabric of what and who we are. In that same documentary, this man named Dr. Jason Firk Fidelis quotes the somewhat renowned Paul Kirks, stating in some part, "Wherever he steps, whatever he touches, whatever he leaves, even unconsciously, will serve as a silent witness against him. Not only will his fingerprints or his footprints, but his hair, the fibers from his clothes, the glass he breaks, the tool mark he leaves, the paint he scratches, the blood or semen he deposits or collects. All of these and more bear mute witness against him. This is evidence that does not forget. It is not confused by the excitement of the moment. It is not absent because human witnesses are. It is factual evidence. Physical evidence cannot be wrong. It cannot perjure itself. It cannot be wholly absent. Only human failure to find it, study and understand it, can diminish the value." Makes pretty damn good sense, huh? The principle is one of those things that, at least when I hear it, should have been a pretty basic truism from our first abilities to walk upright. That's my opinion. Go figure some Frenchman would change the world by stating the obvious. They seem to be damn good at that. But this idea of contact resulting in giving and taking was revolutionary in its time. And it was revolutionary to me that night watching the documentary. Instead of alighting on the idea that a foot or shoe could leave an impression in a flower bed or mulch pile, or doing a dizzy dance regarding fingerprints on a mantle, my mind went to those parts of people now gone, be it through death or breakups or distance, who were still a part of me, and therefore alive or intimately involved or near. I cried at the places in the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice film that Rosa had. She and I had been together and in love for 3 years. I laughed when I saw dogs sneeze, as if that were the height of comedy, just like my best friend Sean St. Martin had growing up. We had been inseparable from 4 to 11. I felt comfortable and safe in old denim overalls, though I never wore them out and about on the town. That was most assuredly from my 2 grandpas. I lost one when I was 6 and the other when I was 22. What an impression those 2 titans made on me. The overalls as armor was just beginning with the exchange there. Favorite dishes, favorite songs, favorite films. Hated traffic situations and happenstances. Hated sleeping positions and temperatures. Hated scents. The exchanges of human-to-human contact do, no doubt, fall under Locard's theorizing, even if it wasn't his intention the better part of a century ago. We affect one another. We change one another through this transference. There is evidence left in our everyday, every hour, every minute. Though, science cannot test our DNA to see the unraveling and remaking, it is there. Our very molecules vibrate with a slightly new resonance. They ping and call out at an altered frequency. We are changed. With all the research now going into a serious consideration of alternate universes and parallel realities and, well, a whole hell of a lot else that is now thought of as more theoretical physics and less science fiction, I have no doubt that we'll be tipping our hat to old Edmond in the next 50 to 100 years and giving him credit where credit is due. If we don't nuke ourselves or climate change ourselves to annihilation first, that is. As a relatively antisocial person, this idea has done some real good for me. I go out as much as possible now. I talk to strangers. I help people in passing. Well, more than I used to. I want to make as many impressions on this plane as I can, so I can live a little longer past my expiration date. That's right. I'm vying for some form of immortality. Or at least a little extra slice of life in its own way. Whew. It is getting late. But be careful out there, you hear? Don't you go just letting anyone that comes by traipsing through your flower bed or mulch pile or leaving behind fingerprints on your mantle. Remember that they'll be sticking with you for a good long while, if not forever. That's a fact. That's the rules of exchange. Thank you for listening to Exchange, an original short story by me, Jared I. McGee. That does it this week for prose. All sounds you've heard across both stories come from either freesound.org or YouTube's Free Music Library. Everything is being used under CC0 1.0 public domain dedication licenses. And with that, we will head off until 2 weeks' time when the next episode will come popping up in your feed. Until then, love those around you, tell them that you do, and embrace this life as it is, always, stranger than fiction. Thank you so very much for listening.